In music, there's a couple of ways we can extend note values. We've already spoken about ties in a previous video, but today we're going to talk about dots. If you don't know about ties, or if you've not seen the previous video, then it's definitely worth watching that, because I'm going to use ties to kind of explain how dots work. Okay, so the first thing I suppose I should probably cover is what it is that a dot does. When you add a dot to a note, or a rest actually, you add on half the value of the note or rest that it follows, alright? So it's probably easier if I just show you. So for example, I'll pick a note value that's got something easy to work with. We know that we've got the minim there, right? Now a minim's worth 2 crotchets, right? So what we want to do is, we know that half of a minim is 1 crotchet, so what a dotted minim does is effectively means the same as this. So as you can see, we've kind of added on half the value of the minim. Now, if I shrink it down a wee bit and I do a dotted crotchet, we know that there's 2 quavers in a crotchet, so it actually would sound the same as this. All right, and so on. I mean, I could do the same with a semi-breve. We know that a semi-breve's got 4 crotchets, or 2 minims if you half it, so it sounds the same as that. Second thing I'd like to go over is where you can find dots. I kind of briefly mentioned it in the previous point, but you can find dots not only after notes, but you can find them after rests as well. And they do exactly the same thing. So if I go back to the board and get rid of all this jazz, go away, go away. So we know if we draw equivalents here, right? So if we've got a dotted minim, we can also have a dotted minim rest. Okay, and we know from the previous point that the dotted minim is effectively this. Okay, and what a dotted minim rest is, it works exactly the same way. You'd have that and you would have that, and they would be tied together to give exactly the same thing. Personally, I've not seen a huge amount of them in music, but you definitely get them. The third point I want to mention, and it's just a tiny point actually, is when we spoke about ties can be used over bar lines. Dots are restricted very much to within a bar. You can't use them to extend a note value beyond the end of a bar. Okay, before I go on to the super advanced dotting, if there is such a word, if you're finding this video useful, or if you've got any questions, then comment below, hit the like button, and if you want to subscribe to the channel. Okay, on to super advanced dotting. I'm sure it's a topic somewhere. Basically, you can double dot. Right? So we know already that if you take a minim and you put a dot after it, then you end up with a crotchet. But you can actually have a note value with 2 dots after it. So let me just show you. All right. So get rid of this stuff again. See ya. Okay. So if we have a look at the minim and we dot it, we know that that is this. Okay, you've got a minim tied to a crotchet. Now, if I then if I do a minim with a double dot, what it means is the second dot adds on half the value of what the first dot equals. So if I double dot that, we would have a minim tied to a crotchet, because that's half the value of the minim, half the value of the crotchet is a quaver. So what we do is we have this, and they would be tied. Alright, so you wouldn't sound them, obviously. That's it for today's video. As I said, it's short and sweet. There's not a huge amount to dots. The double dot thing, you might not even see that until you're years down the line of playing, so I wouldn't worry too much about it, but it's definitely worth getting used to what the dot actually does. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you later.